to welcome all of you here tonight. I think this is an exciting night. I have the fun job of introducing the... thank you, Adam. Next, I'd like to call up Dr. Joseph Stern. Joseph is a sports podiatrist here in Vancouver. He's on the board of directors of Sport Med BC along with myself, and he's one of the consultants to the Sport Med BC Sunrun in Training program. So has a lot of experience working with runners. So without further ado, Dr. Stern.
So I'd like to thank you for inviting me to here, and I'd like to Blaze for saying he liked my title. So that was pretty exciting to me. And I don't even wear minimalistic shoes yet. So my lucky job tonight is to tell you why traditional shoes are great, why you should stick with them. You shouldn't go to minimalistic shoes, never again. And Phil Moore is going to kill me for this, probably. So the traditional shoe, as a lot of you know, obviously everyone here has worn them, and still probably does wear them to a point. And there's probably something you always will have to wear and use in your toolkit, as one of my friends calls it. It fits you quite well. It fits various foot types. It helps take care of a wide foot, a narrow foot, hammer toes. And so there's a lot of great things about it in the traditional fit. And these shoes have been grown over the last 40 years. Dr. Ton's been working with Nike and other companies and helped designing these types of shoes and things over the years. So the heel is important to distribute impact forces. A lot of the authors out there say that helps with decreasing stress fractures, injuries and stuff by dampening the forces through your foot. The forefoot flexibility so you can push off, give you cushion to the forefoot. The midsole is the most important part of the shoe. That's where all the technology goes into the shoe, or most of the technology goes into the shoe. And they're made of EVA usually. They may be dual density. They'll have posting. And that's all to hold that foot, to slow that rate of pronation down. And in the Journal of Sports Science this past summer was talking about the motion control and the effect of halting pronation and impact loading. And they're saying that motion control shoe does help that. So there is good reasons to have these shoes in your toolkit. Other features are torsional rigidity for that flat foot. The shoe lasts, the sole. The sole is really important because it's made out of carbon fiber. It also helps protect your foot. If you want to go minimalistic, you're going to worry about twigs and rocks and glass. That sole on a traditional shoe will not have that problem. And as Adam was talking about, like the drop between the heel and the forefoot is very important. And so it takes care of that if you just want to go out and run with not having as many problems with your Achilles. So as we were taught in school, 80% of the people out there are heel-toe runners, 20% of the people out there are forefoot runners. These forefoot runners have been running in traditional shoes for years. Other shoes also, but traditional shoes. People, at 75% of this population also pronate. So these shoes take care of a lot of the foot problems. They let a lot of different people run. A lot of people go out there and do this activity for their health and that. So the support, it's for the recreational athlete, the cushioning and the support for the recreational, the elite athlete. And pronation is associated with injury is what we're told, and so you want to control the foot. And in the Journal of Physiotherapy, they talked about motion control, decrease, and rotation of the tibia. And those two are related. And if we can control the foot, the pronation of the foot, we're going to control the internal rotation, which is going to help slow and lessen chances of injury in the foot and upwards. So these shoes have allowed us to run. They're for all types of people, fat, skinny, people with bunions, hammer toes, etc. They're good for all different types of surfaces, asphalt, concrete. If you're sore above the foot, I mean, I just deal below mostly, so that's kind of usually say that. If you're sore above the foot, one of my colleagues was telling me from California, you got to talk about these traditional shoes because you want to help that knee or that hip taken care of. And a lot of the shoes are different from the 1970s, where people in the 1970s were skinny, and these were the true runners. These guys ran. And then this boom came in the 1970s and late 60s and 70s, and shoes have evolved over these years to allow everyone out here to run. And then some people want to just go out and run and just make it part of their exercise and don't want to worry about the drop heights, and all these different things of the shoes. They just want to go out and run, not worry about their Achilles, not worry about their plantar fascia, go out and have a good time. Some people out there want to take it a step further. That's probably most of you in this room here today, and you probably don't really care what I'm saying. You want to hear what all these guys are pretty much talking about. Hey, whatever, It's all right. I watched the draft in the hockey today, so it's okay. So, and Kessel didn't go last. Logan Couture. So you want to, why change if it works? That's the big thing. And there's been a huge increase of population of running, 59% between 2000 and 2009. Injuries in the literature have not changed. The amount of injury has not changed in the literature. You'll see good and you'll see bad and things out there, but the injury rates have not really changed. And there's no evidence that a minimalistic shoe is any better than a traditional shoe. And Dr. Liebman, and as you quoted earlier, said that yes, the impact loading in the forefoot running barefoot is the least. But he also said in that same article that if you're wearing shoes, the impact loading is less wearing a shoe if you're a heel-toe striker than if you are barefoot being a heel-toe striker. So we don't want to scare those, as a podiatrist, wear those minimalistic shoes, come in and see me for stress fractures. It's fine with me. I got no problem with it, and your Achilles tendon problems, and then I'll send you to the physiotherapist and add them to strengthen your foot, and I'll give you the exercises, and I think that's part of my armamentarium in my office. It's not, just maybe giving a person orthotic and telling them what shoes, because we look at their feet, we analyze their foot, and we try to tell them to go to the different stores and get a shoe, but we kind of tell them what their foot type is. And so we don't want to scare the traditional people away, the traditional shoe runner away, and we want to excite people on the minimalistic side too, even though I'm protecting the traditional side here. But let's not scare the people who are just a recreational runner who doesn't sit and come to a lecture like this to learn all about it. Thanks.
Well, as we move through our integrated support team here, you can hear the debates that start happening between the practitioners. It then gets to the coaches who sort of look at all of us and says, can't you guys figure out what the heck you're doing and just give me my athlete back healthy and let me work with them? And it's a lot of fun working with the coaches because they bring their own perspective on it. So we're very lucky to have Herb Ivanek, who is a longtime strength and conditioning coach. And I'm trying to multitask here. There we go. A long-time strength and conditioning coach and creator of Core Running. And I think we'll all be very interested to hear what Herb has to say about this topic. Herb.
Thanks, Jim. As a coach, my job is to interpret and apply what people that are way smarter than I have to say and do all the research and how to apply that with my athletes. But I think it doesn't matter where you fall on the side, whether you're traditional or minimalist shoe. I think it's overly simplistic to just say that shoes by themselves will fix problems for every runner. Over the years, there's been a lot of promises made by different shoe technologies, and those promises really haven't been delivered. So my point of view is that what goes in your head is much more important than what goes on your feet. And by that I mean your training approach is the first consideration. So not surprising coming from a coach, I think a well thought out training plan and knowing when and how to adapt that training plan is the first consideration, and then selecting your shoes to fit into that training plan is a secondary consideration. And when we talk about running training, there seems to always be a trade-off between injury prevention and performance enhancement. And if you want to guarantee to not get an injury running, don't run. Performance is going to suck, but you won't get injured running. On the other hand, if your goal is to qualify for the Canadian National Olympic team for the marathon, you're probably going to have to put in a substantial amount of mileage to get there. There's no ways around that. But I think for the recreational level athlete, there's a nice middle ground where we can maximize and get a lot of performance just by minimizing or limiting their injuries. And I think one of the mistakes that's been made in training programs is that too many recreational level programs are based on the high volume of the elites. If you look at the literature, there's two consistent factors that are pretty well throughout all the literature on running injuries. One is a previous running injury that hasn't been rehabbed properly, and two, excessive volume. And so one of the ways we can get around that is to apply the stress to the physiological and neuromuscular systems to maximize the endurance adaptations, but minimize the stress on the tissues and the joints. And we can do that with something called consistent variability. So varying the pace, so doing a lot of easy running and then doing some hard running, but going easy on the easy days and hard on the hard days. One of the key mistakes a lot of runners make at the recreational level is they train a little too hard to get the aerobic benefits from the easy running, and they don't train hard enough to get the anaerobic benefits of the harder type running. Secondly, I think this is really crucial, varying the surface in the terrain. Track, road, sidewalks, grass, trails, sand. I think including a lot of variety in your surfaces is really crucial. You can specialize a bit more as you get closer to your goal event, but overall, having a lot of variety in the terrain and surface. Varying the grade, so flats, uphills, and downhills, which a lot of road runners are really reluctant to run, but working in all those. Varying the planes, so not just working on the forward motion, but also the lateral and the rotational planes as well. We call that 3D training in the core running system. And then varying the movement, so using some cross training, some biking, swimming, or whatever, cross-country skiing, to still get some endurance adaptations and decrease the loading on the joints and the tissues. And then lastly, I think varying the shoes is also a good strategy. And by that I mean sometimes doing a little bit of barefoot running, some barefoot drills, using 2 or 3 models of shoes consistently throughout your training program, I think is a good way to go. And I know the shoe companies and store retailers are going to be happy to say that. And here's a quote from the discussion section in Lieberman's, one of his latest studies coming out this month. And I'll just read the last little bit there. It says, runners and researchers alike may profit from paying more attention to how people run than what's on their feet. And so when we look at doing form work, which is what we do a lot with the core running, teaching people how to move better and run better, what we're trying to really do is improve their running economy. And building upon that, they can build upon the physiological type training. And when we improve their economy, we're looking at things like helping to decrease their muscle co-contraction, so there's less muscle energy used to initiate the running motion, improving elastic recoil, so there, again, less muscle energy required to run. And from an injury prevention point of view, we're decreasing the rate of the loading upon impact. Now, this is just a still. This was supposed to be a video, but this is a couple of the top runners ever. Haile Gebrselassie and Paul Tergat at the 2000 Games in Sydney. And it was a beautiful, if you get on YouTube and Google and search for that, fantastic scene where they're running in slow motion, and you can see the running gait exemplified, and we look at the elites because they do it so well. And Haile actually wins the race in the last 50 meters, but you can watch him, you can see the flexion extension mechanisms through the spine, flexion extension through the hips, and there's also those rotational forces that occur through the trunk and the hips. And all those things are just as important as what happens in the foot and the lower leg. And a lot of the shoe stuff focuses on the feet, but we can't forget the entire kinetic chain. And the other thing we got to keep in mind is fatigue. Has anybody here ever run when they're tired? Do you run differently when you're tired? Very differently. All right, and we can't neglect the role of fatigue in the running gait. And so the role of shoes then is merely to facilitate the running gait, or at least not to interfere with it. And they should also provide some protections from debris and sharp objects, and from obstacles, rocks and roots. I know people have been wearing some minimalist shoes and have actually broken some toes. I won't mention any names. And also to help you out when you're fatigued. And so in conclusion, what I would say that you need a good training plan first, and then choose shoes that fit into that training plan. I think having some different shoes for different types of training, so maybe some more minimalist type shoes for form work and the shorter stuff, and then shoes that have a bit more cushioning for the long distance stuff where you're going to get really tired. Thank you very much.